All right, so I'm doing an unplanned live stream today, and right away I'm just gonna spam my comment. Oh, it won't let me put everything in the comments. So I'm gonna just talk about everything I'm gonna talk about, then I'll go through it one by one. Hopefully everything's recording okay. I should check my mic. Yep, everything looks good. If you've joined the live stream, just do me a favor and let me know if everything sounds okay. So I don't have a lot of time. I have to get to a job. So here's everything I'm going to talk about. The first one is how much. I did a bunch of polls recently. The first one was how much money do you feel you need to make to feel like a successful photographer? I left it open. People can answer that any way they want, and you still can go check out that poll. Next, I asked if you ever use custom white balance. I'm curious. A lot of people find white balance challenging. I think it's pretty simple. I think 99.9% of the time you can shoot an auto white balance, but there are times you may want to experiment a little bit with different options. Another poll it wasn't a poll, another community post, I asked if one lens could replace everything. I got a new lens that I've been experimenting with, and I want to share that in a future video, but I'll talk about it briefly. Another thing I'm going to talk about is I've been logging the data of all of my, thank you, Patrick. I've been logging the data of all of my editing jobs. I really want to know how long it's taking me to edit each job, how many minutes of editing to expect per hour of shooting, etc. And once I've compiled some data for maybe 6 months, I want to see how I could improve my editing speed other than just getting quicker at editing, which I think at this point I've kind of hit I've probably plateaued. I've done this a long time, but I'm going to look at different products, perhaps AI editing, that kind of thing. And then another poll I did was, what do you find most challenging about photographing people? That was an interesting one. And then the last bit I'm going to discuss is why I have not been on YouTube. Because it's been, I think, over a month since I've done a video, and I'll get into that. So I'm going to pull up the poll results and I'll go in order. I'll check for comments periodically. I will answer any questions, even if they are unrelated, at the end. I don't expect this live stream to fill up because I won't be doing it long enough, and probably most people will catch it when it's no longer live. Okay, so let's pull up the first poll. I'm going to go in reverse order, I think. Most recent. So I asked how much money per year you feel you need to feel like a successful full-time photographer. And I found the poll not surprising, but I had a lot of thoughts. So 18% of people, and you can follow along if you check out the community page, said 30 to 40,000% they would feel successful. 17%, so about the same, felt like 40 to 60,000 would be enough for them to feel successful. And 32%, which was the majority, was 60 to 80,000, which used to feel like a good amount of money to me, but things are weird these days. I'll get into that. And then 16% felt 80 to 100, and then 17% said over 100K. So pretty much the same amount for everything but 60 to 80. So most people felt like 60 to 80,000 was enough. It's just weird because with inflation, I live in Los Angeles. I know people that are lawyers and can't buy a home. Homes are $1 million. I'm doing better than I ever have. I'm doing better with my business than I could have imagined 3 years ago. 3 years ago, I couldn't have imagined I would do as well as I'm doing now, and I still don't feel like I have enough to quite live a very comfortable life by most people's standard. I have a different standard. I don't require a lot, but I think I keep readjusting what I think I need to make, but that is different than feeling like you are a successful photographer. That is a different story, and that can, to some, it would mean just paying your bills. But the older you get to a point where that's not really enough, just paying your bills. You want to put away for a future, maybe you want a family, that kind of thing. All right, so the next one I poll was, do you ever use custom white balance and then I shared some images. One was using custom white balance, and one was not. The one that was not was just auto white balance, and then the one that was, I used Canon's feature to set a custom white balance, photographing something white, like a white piece of paper. That's exactly what I did. And like I said, I think auto white balance is the way to go 99.9% of the time. But I have noticed that at some conferences, the auto white balance can jump around a little bit, and I get some images just way too warm or cool. And what I've been experimenting with is setting my custom white balance, which is often not how I leave the image, but then I have more consistency, and I will have everything at whatever the color temperature that is, and then I can kind of batch edit everything together to make it look the way I want it to look. Often warming it up a bit, because custom kind of just nullifies all the natural lighting, which has a warm tone at a lot of these venues. So other things I've been doing is experimenting with gray cards. I'm doing all of this because I want to just kind of make a comprehensive video on white balance and stuff later on. I've been doing things the same way, more or less, for my entire career, and I don't think it needs to change, but I want to share my findings with all of you. And also, I think it is important to challenge the way you do things, to always try to improve. And a big thing for me is, like I talked about, I'm working on a project where I'm tracking my editing time, and I'm seeing how I can make it even quicker, because I hate editing, and perhaps there is a way with setting my white balance, that kind of thing. Last thing, there was 116 votes on that poll, and it was 50-50. So half of you do use custom white balance, and half of you do not. Okay, I have a job to get to, so I'm not gonna have a lot of time for questions, but I'm gonna take a look at real quick. Ognos, 60 to 80K will barely pay bills, and rent in San Francisco, probably the same for LA. I think if you're making 60, 80K net, you know, you're not gonna be a homeowner maybe, but you'll do okay. But yeah, you're not gonna really build a future for yourself, I feel like. That's like an ISO issue too, in my opinion. But how do you preset the white balance if you're changing rooms? Okay, I won't have time to get into that today. All right, continuing on. So I asked if one lens could replace everything, and I mean, while I think it wasn't hard to predict what my results would be experimenting with this lens, and this is that lens, and I'll still make a video on it. This is I'm sorry. No. But it is a 70 to 300, no, what am I saying? 28 to 300 millimeters, which pretty much will cover every focal length you'll mostly need at an event. Often it's nice to have wider, but you don't always need it. There are major limitations with the lens. It is heavy, it's slow. It didn't work out well for the conferences I've experimented with so far, but I have a 4-day conference coming up starting tomorrow, and that is a very, for lack of a better phrasing or whatever, high-end conference, and everything will be very well lit, whereas the image I shared previously, it was not well lit at all. And so it is feasible. I don't think it will be my preference to use, but again, I'm just trying it out, and I'm going to share my findings. I don't think they're going to be surprising, to me at least. Okay, next thing I want to discuss would be, like I said, I'm working on a project in which I'm logging the hours I'm putting into my editing. I hate editing. I hate being in front of a computer. I'm getting carpal tunnel again. My goal is, I enjoy what I do when it comes to actually making images. It's not a bad way to make a living at all. You know, I get to take photographs professionally for a living, but 90% of what I do seems to not involve making images. And so I am always looking to reduce the amount of time that it takes me to edit a project. This is not my, although I'm passionate about art, I'm passionate about photography, I love photography, work is not my passion. And so it is a means to give me the lifestyle I really want, which involves other things other than photography, like jiu-jitsu, travel, etc. And so I'm trying to reduce the amount of time. So the findings have been interesting, and I've been posting them to my Patreon page, and I'm also, when I'm able to share the work, sharing the work so you can see what the edit looks like. I think my Patreon is patreon.com/MickMilliman if you want to check it out. It's been a little bit all over the place. I actually will pull up the notes real quick. There are some jobs I'm not logging, maybe if they're not like strictly event photography jobs. That is vast majority of what I do, like 99%. But I've had a few jobs recently that weren't actually events. I've been kind of recommended to various magazines that want someone that knows how to capture like a real emotion out of a subject rather than just stiff portraits. And so while I'm not known for shooting like editorials, I am known for capturing like moments, and so I've been asked to shoot things like that. So I photographed the fire chief of Los Angeles, which was a lot of fun. I did use this lens to experiment at the end, and it was not bad. It was interesting to use. But like I said, I've been logging it, and so here's a few examples. This one job, it was 3 hours long. I shot 2,740 images because I was experimenting with the Canon R6 Mark II's 40 frames per second feature, which was ridiculous. 2,700 basically images in 3 hours is a lot. My first edit, which was culling, took 42 minutes. My second edit, 35 more minutes, and then I did a third round of editing for 40 minutes. The total editing time was 117 minutes, and the final image count was 593. So that was an outlier as far as like the amount I shot. Here we have another job. In 3 hours also, I shot 1,200 images approximately. My first edit, which was culling, was 31 minutes and another 23, then another 57. It had problematic lighting, so it took a bit longer. Again, my edit time was 111 minutes. I'm going to jump ahead to a conference, and that was interesting because it was 9 hours long, but I only shot 2,400 images approximately. My total editing time was 124 minutes, and I'd have to pull up another document. This one is only, I have a document where I'm kind of writing my thoughts and notes of what the challenges were and that kind of thing. But that one was the quickest to edit because it's very easy to edit a conference. It's easy to not overshoot a conference. You kind of know exactly the images you need. Once you get that shot, you kind of back off a bit. The lighting is consistent, etc., and you kind of hit a flow. New speakers enter, you kind of just repeat. It's very cookie cutter and boring. I'm not saying I don't get to be creative at all, but it is the most cookie cutter kind of job I'll shoot. And it also, this really confirms that conferences are, for me, the best way to go when it comes to the business side of photography and my goals personally, which is to spend as little time editing as possible. So I make the most money at a conference. It's the most billable hours. And then I have the quickest edit with conferences. So I very much enjoy them. They're not, again, the most creative, but I do enjoy them. Let me see what else we have. Okay, I asked, and probably in like 10 minutes I've got to get ready for a job, but I asked in another poll, what do you find most challenging about photographing people? And this one was a huge majority. A huge majority said approaching people. I said, tell me why. I didn't get too many comments, but it seems like people have a hard time approaching people, and it's probably not a priority, but I would like to make a video on this in the future. Let's quickly look at the comments. I think people get a little bit nervous, is what I'm sensing, photographing people, because they feel like they're fumbling around with their camera if they're newer. And so I use the juggling analogy a lot. You know, if you're a new photographer and you don't even know how to operate your camera yet, that's like juggling one ball, you're tripping up. But eventually you're going to get the hang of that, but you're not going to be able to juggle two balls, which maybe that would be something like light. You don't really understand light. But basically, the longer you do this, the more stuff you're able to juggle all at once, and you're not going to be fumbling. And this is the argument I have for really understanding photography at a technical level, so that you are not fumbling around with your on the job. It's just you have a vision, you're able to create it. There's nothing, no hiccups. I will get to questions at the end. I do see people have dropped a few. Okay, I guess I'm not even able to scroll beyond that for my community tab. Hang on, let me figure out what's going on here. Okay. And then I asked in another poll, what are some of the challenges in trying to learn photography on YouTube? Okay, this one's interesting. I very much want to hear your thoughts. And the majority of people, 40%, said finding the right videos. I agree, I have the same issue. The videos I'm looking for often aren't made, I don't think, and they're not going to be fed to me algorithmically, I guess. And then the next highest vote count would be finding creators teaching what I want to learn. If this is about photography, I mean, I don't need to go into what we all know, and that is that it's very consumerism focused, and there is a whole racket on YouTube. You review a product, and then there's that you probably got for free, and then there's links in the description for people to buy it. There's a bias. Most people were never, and I'm not saying you need to be, but they're not really being clear about their background, whether they're a professional photographer, a professional artist, a hobbyist, etc. They're just kind of, people are presuming authority. And I also, my issue with a lot of reviews, because I don't think they're evil, I don't have the view that it's all bad. I think it's a little out of whack, and I think there's little incentive to not run a YouTube channel that's basically reviewing gear. But also there is the reality that lenses are very easy to find. They're keyword friendly, but like a philosophical video on photography is less likely to reach an audience, and that's just how it is. And it's not because people are horrible, whether it's the viewers or the YouTuber. But that's my thoughts on that. I have many more, but I don't want to get into all of it. Okay, and then the last bit would be where I've been and why I have not been on YouTube. So it's a combination of things, really. So first of all, I went through a significant loss recently. Actually, didn't think I'd be emotional, but I did, and I initially tried to power through it. I focused on work, and it worked for a while, but I realized I've been kind of working too hard for a really long time. My photography is, I'm extremely busy with professional photography alone, but on top of that, I do teach photography in person, and I never really feel like I'm caught up. And then when I'm actually caught up with all my work, it's not like I get a day off. I then have to worry about making YouTube content, which is something I don't really, once I commit to something, I commit to it. But I realized that wasn't very sustainable because I was constantly there was no mental time off. I was always like thinking about the next video, and any time, and I don't have a lot of it, any time I had left over after I'm caught up on my actual work, it just became very stressful to maintain. And then I wanted, like I just said, like it's really hard to build a channel when you're not talking about gear, and I don't want to make excuses. And for me, it's like, okay, it's a challenge. Like, how I'll figure it out. I'll figure out how to reach a larger audience and maybe make this more sustainable, because I feel like it's taking so much out of me. And so I made a video where I went all out. Like, I literally think I put over 40 hours because I wanted to get it right. And while it didn't do terrible, and I'm gonna pull up the data, it just didn't do as well as I had hoped. You never know, you know. Generally you get a decent idea if you do this long enough. You get a good idea of what will do well and what won't. But this one just for the amount of time I put in, it just kind of deflated me a bit. And in context of everything, like where I was just felt like I was sacrificing so much for my channel, it was time to really just prioritize myself and not feel that pressure. And there were consequences to that. I lost a lot of Patreon supporters. It may have been coincidence, and I'm okay with that, you know. But it is what it is, and I absolutely am committed to this, but I think I have to. It's a weird thing where I want to balance, like I want to build something that is sustainable, where like I don't feel so drained from it. But I also want to I think I need to also just make content I'm proud of, but for the sake of me being proud of it and not worrying about like how it will do. I think that's the balance I'm trying to reach. Okay, I think that covered it all, so I'll look at questions. And then I have to get to a job. It's local, luckily, so it won't take me too long to get to. And during my busy season, I mean, I don't know what my busy season is anymore. Like, I thought things were going to die down last year at the end of the year, and I ended up having to turn down a lot of jobs to travel. But I feel like everything's just always busy. But May is exceptionally busy. I've got this job tonight, and then I have a 5-day conference starting tomorrow morning. It's going to be like 10-hour days back to back. So let me get through the questions real quick. So I have a 24 to 240, and it did surprisingly well in some of the better lit and more relaxed shows. I wish the IQ was better. Yeah, image quality. So agree, the image quality of this lens is not, it's not even close to like my 70 to 200, which is just amazing. It's not close to my 50 1.2. It is maybe comparable to my 24 to 70. I have the original EF version, but I've always found that to be a soft lens, for me at least, that copy. Running with scissors, I don't hate editing, but it's so creatively draining. How are you balancing that? I mean, that's why I shoot events, because I didn't want to be in front of a computer. But that said, I want to get it down as much as I can. It is draining, but I realized so much of it was how you frame it. And now that I'm framing it in like, okay, I'm logging my data, I'm going to keep track of everything, and then I'm going to share my results and help people. And so because of that, I feel kind of more, I'm enjoying editing more because of that. And running with scissors, wow, you're being very analytical, but where were those final images the best? That questioning is a challenge I fight with. So I've talked about this a lot. You do want to cull as much as you can, but there's diminishing returns, and in the end of the day, your client might not even appreciate the fact that you got like 5 similar images, or like instead of getting 10 similar images down to 2 or 3, you got it down to 1. They're not going to care that much. Just make sure you deliver a quality product overall. You have to balance, like, you have to think this is a business. You can't just do endless hours editing when it's a hobby and you booked one job maybe. But I have like several jobs a week. If I don't get an edit done before the next job, I feel like I'm behind, and so I'm always balancing that. Now, if you're curious about the end product, like I said, for Patreon supporters, I am posting my results, the data, and also I'm sharing the work. So you can kind of see what I'm delivering. Do you keyword images? I used to, and I should, but I've been so busy that I skip that even. But typically I do that. You can retroactively keyword your images if you want to like do a search in Lightroom. What does that even mean at the alternate vlog? Oh, so yeah, I assumed he was talking about adding keywords to your metadata in Lightroom. Okay, for the love of music and people, I did my first communion event photography gig today, just finished 6 hours of it. I brought my studio lights and soft boxes with me and set up a spot in the garden for some couple portraits. You can work that way. I truly believe less is more, and I really think that you should be able to get it done without that kind of equipment. Often your client may even like it more. I do think that creating studio type portraits at events weddings, etc., has been a big trend for the last 10 years. But I think it's slightly a bit of a trend, and it isn't necessary, but I won't get fully into that. They said normally photographers don't do that with them, so they may have liked it, you know. I'm not saying you have to do it the way I do it, but I'm just sharing kind of the philosophy I've moved toward. Okay, I don't know, Running with Scissors DM me, I don't know if he's referring to me or who. How did you book your first conference gig? Well, that's a good question. I don't remember. I don't remember, but the way your career will be built is that you're unlikely to get some astronomical, like, out of nowhere big moment where you are getting a you're going from like kids' birthday parties to photographing a big event with a former president. You kind of like just you build, and you take these steps forward that are just never going to be too much out of your reach, like a little too big. Does that make sense? You kind of should have an idea of where you want your career to go, but a lot of it will happen organically. But I don't really remember what my first conference was, but if you want to get in touch with me, I can talk about like how you can put yourself out there and then build up a conference photography gig. You know what I mean? Okay, Mick, go to work. Don't be that guy. You got this. What? I don't know what you mean. I'm not going to be late for the job. I'll never be late for a job. So don't worry. Do you expect a slowdown in gigs Q3, Q4? So I did last year and it didn't happen. I mean, I turned down 2 New Year's jobs, which was weird. But it was what it was. I was in Thailand for a month and I needed to be there. I needed to get away and take an actual vacation. So while it was slower, I mean, it was still like I turned down like $5,000 of work, I would say, maybe more. Do you use any AI tools to minimize your workflow? So back to the editing, I will get to that eventually, where I'll experiment and try different products, including AI. I had a company reach out to me a very long time ago, and they gave me, this was like years ago, like over 5 maybe, and I tried it. I just didn't find it to be that quick, not much of a saver. I'm sure things have come along. I never asked that, so I'm confused about. I don't know what that comment is. Okay, for the love of music and people, I agree. It will probably be more editing work since it's middle up portraits with studio lights, but I will charge them extra if they want an image edited beyond what I do for an event. So you know what? Yeah, you just find what works for you, and there is no one way. Really, there is no one way. I think there's bad advice, but there is not one way to go about building a business and how you want to do it, stylistically, etc. Agnes at Adil, I'm sorry. I've looked into image AI to kind of outsource some of my editing, but you need like thousands of edits to upload to create a profile that is consistent with your style. That's interesting. Okay. Have you worked with assistant photographers, and if so, why and how was that experience? Yeah, I mean, I have worked with people. People that second shoot for me are people I've known for a long time that I trust. But you know, varying success. There are a few that just haven't lived up to my expectation. Usually people I haven't worked with before that I haven't known for a while, and I've been disappointed, but I kind of don't care, because in the end of the day, I really believe that I shoot in a way in which if their memory cards get wiped somehow, I'll still have an outstanding product, and so I don't really depend on them. So it's not a huge deal. Okay, I just realized monetization is off for this stream. Oh well. Not like I make money anyway on them. And that was all the questions, so I'm gonna get ready for a job. I hope you guys enjoyed the live stream. I will, if you want. I think going forward, making this channel sustainable for me isn't going to be about growing. It's really going to be about building relationships, and that's which will work for me financially, but also because it will work for me in that's what I wanted to do with this channel. I wanted to help people. So if you want to check out my Patreon, I put a link. That is the way I can help you best. And then I have one more comment, then I'm going to go. I loved your videos related to lighting events quickly with minimal equipment. With minimal equipment that I need water. That has really helped me out. Yes, you should be able to do it minimally. I think often like big setups aren't even always an improvement, truthfully. So in worst case scenario, you want to be able at least have the ability to do more with less, even if you don't need to do more with less. Like, you should be able to. All right, that's it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. New content will come, but I do need to prioritize myself a little bit more. And after this big conference, I think I'll have some time. Okay, take care.